Well, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the studio. And yes, I just sat down. How's everybody doing this week? Been a wonky week for me, but we're going to make it through all this okay. Lost a couple of good friends on Monday. Two separate things, but yeah, it kind of left a dent in me. But we still have work to do here. So let's get to it. All right, let's look at some of the questions Hank gathered up for me during the week. Let's see. We've got Carlos Meno, 178. Hi, John. If I may ask you, how would I check for a parasitic draw on my CBR 1000RR? Well, it's just like any other machine, but you're kind of taking a little bit of a chance here, because what you're going to need to do if we're tracking down a really low amperage draw, and that's what parasitic means to me, you can do that with just about any multimeter out there. And what you'll end up doing is switching it over to amperage, and then you're going to DC. Then of course you're going to need to move your leads inside the meter itself, and then you're going to put that in series with your battery connection. And I typically do that on the positive side. So you'll be coming from your battery, going through the meter, and then connecting it to the connection that would normally go to the battery of the motorcycle, or the load side. And at that point, especially on the car side, what I would do is I would start going through each circuit. And the way you can do that is just pull out a fuse one at a time. So if you're reading 0.02 amps or something like that, a couple of tenths or maybe a tenth of an amp, 0.1. When you pull that fuse, it's going to drop out and go to 0, hopefully. And once you know at least what family that it's in, let's say like a lighting circuit, and you pull the lighting fuse and okay, it goes away. At that point, you can plug the fuse back in and then go to each individual device on that circuit. So turn signals, headlights, and just whatever, and figure out how it's getting triggered. And on the light circuit, that's typically going to be in your controller somehow or another. But that's basically, I know we started off with the lights, and honestly, you would probably pick up on that because you'd see one of them on. But you get my meaning. You determine which fuse it is, and then whatever fuse family that belongs to, and then you start looking at all those different parts of the circuit or devices. All right. Domithamagnus 7982. Hello, John. I have a Honda CBR 500X23 low mileage. Can I use a good full synthetic 10W40 instead of the 10W30 recommended? Mild winters, hot summers, South Europe. Absolutely. And I would bet that it would give you that range if you looked in your owner's manual, and probably recommend doing just that, going with a little bit heavier weight on the top end because you're going to run it in hotter summers. Right, in my car on the track, I'm running a 15W60 because let's face it, that engine's getting stressed pretty hard, especially in the summer months here in Southwest Georgia and surrounding areas. But yes, I would have no hesitation running a 10W30 in place of a 10W40 in place of a 10W30, especially if it's a synthetic. Matter of fact, I think we did a video comparing the two. Hank, if you want to drop that in the chat, Mr. Magos7982 can watch it at his leisure. Chrissy Grieg. Watched your ATV won't start video. It helped a lot, but I've tested the solenoid. That seems fine. But when I turn the key, the solenoid vibrates, but the engine won't turn over. Tested the starter, and that seemed okay. Any suggestions? Okay. You didn't give me the year, make, and model, but I'm going to go under the assumption that there's going to be a reduction gear in between the outlets on most machines. In between the output of your starter, there's a reduction gear, and then it'll usually engage, typically the clutch basket, and that's what spins the engine over. I wonder if there's a problem inside there. I know on this one particular make and model in particular, the Suzuki, I think it was the DSR or DRS 650. And what would happen, that intermediate gear or reduction gear, it would actually break out of its mounts, and that would misalign all of those gears heading down to that starter ring. That, or it could, whatever make and model you have. Believe it or not, I've seen plastic gears being that have been used as the reduction gear. So chances are it is something going on there. Now, the much worse scenario would be that your engine is locked up. And if we want to make sure that's not the case, then pull whatever inspection portal or window that's over, not window, just the plug that's over the crankshaft, and just make sure she turns over. Hopefully that is not the case, and it's just a reduction gear problem. 12K peso. How do you know when a four-wheeler is going to blow up? Because I want to buy a used one. Well, I know we did a video series, or at least one video on what to look for, and what to look out for when you're going to purchase an ATV, or this really goes for any machine. The biggest things to look for is it smoking? Is it making any weird sounds? And then if you can, at least carry a compression tester where you can at least get some type of baseline as to the health of the engine. I doubt you're going to have a compressor and the wherewithal to do a leak down test, but if you could bring it into a shop or have access to an air compressor, that will tell you a lot as to the health of the engine. Another big telltale sign is just look at the dipstick and smell. I mean, if the oil smells burnt, even though it may be fresh, chances are that engine wasn't maintained properly and it's not going to last as long. But that's just just a few of the telltale signs that you can look out for. But go watch that video. Hank, if you would drop that one in the chat, and they can go, and 12K Peso can go check it out. All right, Kenneth Morgan. I have a 2013 550 Polaris Sportsman ATV that one of the intake valves keeps getting tight. Have had to adjust it 2 times in less than a month and a half. Just wondering if what's making it get tight. What would be a good fix besides getting rid of it? Now, I wouldn't get rid of it that quickly. When a valve tightens up, what is happening, if this is the valve face and this is the stem coming up, and you've got the rocker arm going, pushing it back and forth, and what your valve adjustment is that distance in between the rocker arm or the camshaft or whatever's pushing it down, that clearance is getting tighter, and it's getting less because that valve is allowed to go further up into the head. And that's usually a sign of wear on the face of the valve face itself, and usually not the valve seat, because typically your valve seat is going to be of harder material than the valve surface itself. But it is wearing into that valve seat and letting it go further up, thus making it tighter. My immediate thought would be to resurface the seats and put in a new valve, at least on that one side. Kind of odd that it's only doing it on the intake and not the exhaust. But we've seen that before. And if you want to make sure you want to get rid of this problem, you may want to consider going with a little bit higher performance or a tougher valve. I'm fairly certain that Kibblewhite probably makes one for that machine. If not, get it resurfaced, pop in a new one from Polaris, and you should be good to go. It's kind of odd that it's wearing so quickly. I guess once it got past that surface, it's just that initial surface on the outside is just eating its way through the rest of the valve. Let us know how that one works out for you. All right, one more. Brian Klaus. I have a delayed starting problem on the 2011 Polaris Ranger 800. It happens when I turn the key and let the fuel pump charge. Then when I step on the brake pedal and turn the key, we have engagement, but then a hesitation before it actually starts. I've changed the safety switch, the starter, and the switch starter. What am I missing, or have I done wrong? Honestly, Brian, I don't think you've done anything wrong. And I can remember back to my dealership days when we first became a Polaris dealership. It was around that 2011, 2012 era or time frame. And I remember getting in the machines, and we're bringing them in and out every day, or each morning and evening. And there was a couple of different 800s, and usually the Ranger reach up, hit the key, and it would just not do anything for a second. I'd be thinking, oh, crap, this thing's got a dead battery. Now what? I have to go get a jump box. But it would wait a second or two, and then she would fire off. So honestly, I think it's just kind of indigenous to that machine. If everybody out there knows something different than I, as far as this is concerned, please chime in. Maybe we can all learn something today, or I hope we will anyway. All right. That is, oh, I forgot something at the beginning of this. We've done our initial questions. Well, everybody was keeping up, or hopefully everybody was keeping up with that Polaris, no, not Polaris, the Can-Am Outlander build that we did, the Swamp Machine. Well, I released the guy's name, and now we've actually sent it out to him. And Nathan went out there, I believe it was this past week, took a bunch of photos, did a little impromptu interview that he will be putting on social media later. But there he is. That is Todd R. I'm not going to give his last name, but yeah, he was long-time customer. Definitely had a couple of machines, and I believe they were all Can-Am. But we'll find out later when Nathan releases that little short video. Been riding for several years, and here's the real trick. I heard that he entered on the website one time, just one. That's all it took. So that was pretty cool. I'm looking forward to seeing the interview that Nathan did with him once he's done editing it. Nathan's a busy guy. I believe he's heading to Birmingham next week or something like that. But wherever the Monster Supercross series is heading, that's where he'll be. So if you're going to any of those events, go find the PRMX truck. Yes, hard to miss. And then they have either 4 or 5 riders. Go find Nathan, and he can set you up with a swag pack. If he's not there, there will be somebody from Partzilla working the table. So go check us out if you're in that neighborhood. All right, let's see what all Hank has lined up for me today. Well, it looks like we got 4 or 5, so let's see if we can hack our way through this. Applejacks 971 asks, my questions are in regards to a newly acquired 2014 Sportsman 850 XP HO EPS with 13,700 miles. Thanks, John. Antifreeze, can it be regular green antifreeze, mixed 50-50, or use extended life, off the shelf brand or Polaris brand? I typically stay away from the green stuff, just that regular, green antifreeze that you pick up at AutoZone or whatever. I always head toward OEM, especially when it comes to antifreeze. Typically, most of the machines, they have the blue stuff. Now, what is the chemical composition in between the blue and the green? I'm not exactly sure, but I do know that it seems that the blue stuff is more friendly to aluminum or aluminium. So I would go back with the stock stuff. That is what I've always done, whether it's my cars or motorcycle or boats, whatever that manufacturer shipped it out with, that's what I go back with, because it's a hard lesson to learn, especially if you try mixing that green stuff in a machine that's been filled with Dex Cool, which is the orange stuff. But that same train of thought that carries over in my mind, at least, to make sure I go back with whatever the manufacturer shipped out. Now, if you strip the engine all the way down and do a complete rebuild where there's absolutely not even a trace of anything, well, then, okay, maybe you've got a little bit more leeway as to going with a different brand or manufacturer. But I would definitely recommend going back with whatever that Sportsman was born with. Just my opinion. Also, it's the same question, or another question from Applejacks. Regarding CVT drive belts, is there a realistic difference in between Polaris, EPI, and the Ultimax brands for general pleasure riding? Well, I'm sure if you talk to anybody at EPI or Ultimax, they're going to say theirs is the best. Now, do I have direct testing knowledge of all 3 of those? Well, I do with Polaris and I do with EPI, and I've been very pleased with both of them, even the stock stuff. Now, I do think some of the EPI equipment and part numbers, that they are a step above. They're a little bit stronger than the stock Polaris. The Ultimax, they've got a great reputation. I've not personally used them on any of my machines, but the forums really seem to like them. But as far as just having to get one for general pleasure riding, you shouldn't need to. But if you're like me, when it comes to that belt, I want to put the best thing that I can in there. I was always a big fan of Gates. Gates belts have been around for a long time, and they seem to hold up pretty well. So that may be one other one you want to look at that will not break the bank when it comes time to buy an extra one to keep with you. Because it's not if, it's when the belt is going to fail. It's just a fact of life. That is like a tire, in my opinion. Eventually, it's going to wear down, and it'll need to be replaced. And it's better to have one on you than not. I've been stranded once because of a belt, and it won't happen to me again. Michael Taylor asks, this is going to seem like an odd question. No, there's only odd answers. But I ordered a header pipe for an 08 FJR 1300 from eBay, and the pipe doesn't fit. Are there any different pipes for different models of the FJR? Michael, I'm not sure, but here's how we can find out. Go to your 08 FJR 1300 on the Partzilla website and drill down to that header pipe, and then below, just scroll down a little bit, and it'll say, I believe it's other machines that it's used on, and it's going to give a listing that other machines that particular pipe will fit on. And if it's the FJR 1300, I think it's just going to give you a bunch of different years. So that should give you, it's not an exact answer, but that should at least give you a feel for to see if there was a variation or a change. Odds are it's just a manufacturing over tolerance with a lot of the stuff that you can get on eBay, and you may have to massage it in there. In other words, bend it into place. I've got some experience, or some of my friends have had that experience with exhaust systems for, especially cars, and there are a bunch of them out there. They're almost priced too good to be true, but if you can actually get them to line up, they can last in most cases. But just head to the site, go to that particular head pipe for your year, make, and model, and then look to see what other models that may fit on. Jonathan Price says, John, I don't have a question, just wanted to say thank you. Me and my son have been recently buying and fixing up old ATVs and dirt bikes, and we have learned so much from your videos. Well, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you send us a email to that Ask Partzilla email address, Hank, if you would drop that in there for Jonathan. Give us your contact information. Maybe we can set you and your son up with a little swag pack. Sounds like a deal. Get in touch with us. All right, Applejack, and thanks for watching that, because it makes all of this possible. Fun. I have a fun job. That's just all there is to it. Applejack, he's got one more for me. 971, ask another one. Why is it that no one seems to apply grease to the steel shaft of new ball joints when reinstalling? They're crazy not to. That is one of the biggest pains that I've ever had to go through, is to remove a CVC or a CVT, a drive shaft out of a front differential where it wasn't greased and water got in there and locked it in place. It was a nightmare. And I think we had a question on that a couple of weeks ago. Somebody asked, how in the world can I get this thing out of there? For me, I ended up having to weld a bolt to the side of the axle shaft all the way up front and use a slide hammer to pop it out. So I have zero issues with using grease or anti-seize or whatever that'll make sure when that axle does fail again that I can get it out of there. So yeah, I think it's a mistake not to. Also, is there anything to consider when shopping for aftermarket shocks versus OEM? Be a little careful here. A lot of the aftermarket shocks, they will sell them, the manufacturers will, that supposedly fit a variety of machines, and so they may not work as well as they should on yours versus another, and sometimes they're a little bit complacent, compliant. Their tolerances are not very good, especially when you're talking about the attachment points. So just make sure that the mounting points, the lengths, all the external dimensions are the same or close when you're thinking about going with the aftermarket stuff. that and be wary of some of the lesser reputable manufacturers, aka stuff from China. It may look the part, but it won't be the part. No pun intended. All right, looks like we've got one more from John Williams. Hi, John. I have an 88 4-track 300. You can't kill those things. That will crank cold but no start, but will kickstart every time uh, when only when cold. The CDI. Probably. The the only other thing, well, when that pickup coil gets hot, it's looking for X amount of energy to send up to the CDI to where it knows the timing. So if your starter isn't spinning that over fast enough and it's hot, it may not be getting that trigger from the ignition timing. This is kind of, is it the chicken or the egg? Which one's first? But being an 88, I think I would lean more toward the CDI, the capacitive discharge interface, if I remember my initials correctly. But whatever you find on it, get back in touch with us and let us know, because I'll file it up here for the next person that has that question. All right, Hank, we got anything else, or did we catch everybody? 325, that sounds about right. I'll wait a couple of seconds. And there he goes. He's got wrap, no more questions. I guess that means we're done for today. Well, all right, kids. Next Friday, I will be heading off to Roebling Road yet again to go play with my little silver toy. So it'll be up to the multimedia team to determine if I want to do something from the road. Sometimes that works out if I have a decent Wi-Fi signal for just my phone, which I can use as a hotspot. But I can check in with y'all en route to a little racetrack outside of Savannah. And once again, if anybody is heading to or following the Monster Supercross series, go find Nathan at the PRMX tent, and he will set you up with a swag bag. Well, I appreciate everybody swinging by, spending a little bit of time with us on this fine Friday. Everybody have a great weekend, a great week, and maybe we will see you from the road next Friday.